Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is All Things Books and Publishing. I am Yvonne Mason along with Mary Brotherton. And every second Tuesday of the month, unless Mary decides that she has other things that she wants to do, which includes making visits to the hospital,
Not things I want to do.
we hold a free workshop. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is a free workshop. And in this workshop, we talk about so many things in the publishing world that many writers and most authors really don't understand or know. And one of those things is the Chicago style of writing. And today that's what we're going to discuss in depth, is this Chicago style of writing. In the writing world, and if you've ever been in a writing class, you will understand what I'm saying. Mary is a former journalist, understands. I, as a former hunter, understands. There's three different styles of writing: the technical, the journalistic, and the creative. The journalistic is for newspapers and magazines. The technical is for textbooks and how-to books. And the creative is for, you guessed it, novels and nonfiction and whatever else you decide to put in the written word for entertainment of reading. With that being said, the Chicago style of writing, which was formed in 1906 by the Chicago University and the Chicago Press, has been an accepted style of writing in the literary world. And there's a reason for that. And Mary, I'm going to let you start with that reason.
Well, it's because we need a standard. The anything that you do needs a standard, but especially in the writing world. And as Yvonne said, there are so many different kinds of writing. And one that she kind of glossed over was academics and sciences. They use the APA style guide, which is the American Psychological Association. The journalism uses the AP style book, which is very similar to the Chicago Manual of Style, but it's like a hybrid kind. And technical writing also uses different styles. I've edited, for each one of these styles, I've edited doctorate theses before. They use either they use the AMA or the MLA or the APA, and you have to find out what style they wrote under to know how to edit that. But the Chicago Manual of Style is the standard for book publishing. Whether it's fiction, long form, nonfiction, it doesn't really matter. It's highly detailed and it covers all aspects of punctuation, hyphenation, and even whether or not or how to cite your work if you need to. And it is so important that we, as a publishing house, have a style that we use, because we need to make sure that our writers adhere to that, so that everything from Midnight Publishing, we don't change the voices, but we want it to all flow seamlessly and feel cohesive. We don't want to have a bunch of mumbo jumbo out there. And that's our main reason.
And also,
and it makes our life easier.
And also with the Chicago style of writing, there are parameters within that style of writing. For instance, it is a compilation of typographical rules, as in 12-point font times New Roman. That is the only font and the only point that we accept. Anything other than that, I will change it. Number one, it is easier to read on the printed page. Number two, if you get in the habit of writing in that style, all of your other problems that you gather are not as bad. For instance, there should be a 1-inch margin all the way around the paper. Your indentation should be left aligned. In other words, you align your paper.
Center it.
Right, you align
Don't
your paper.
justify it.
You align your paper on the left. The right can be all ragged. It doesn't matter. And then you have a 1/2-inch indent. So when you're writing a book, I just finished a book where there is no indentation for paragraphs. That is so important in the literary world. Go ahead.
There is one thing that we do differently than the Chicago Manual of Style suggests in the font and spacing. They say, just like you did, use a standard readable font like 12 point, that's the size. And because if you do 14 or 15 or whatever, it's too big. New Roman, Times New Roman, and double space your text. We don't
Yeah,
want
they
your-
do.
That's what they recommend, but they are
do.
still kind of in the old school. We don't want it double spaced.
For some reason, your mic is acting up. Now I can't hear you at all.
Because I'm not speaking. How about now?
It's better now. It's buzzing and going in and out.
Oh. Well, that's not nice.
No,
Okay. Well,
it'll be all right. We will soldier on.
We'll
But what
figure-
Mary was saying is, we'll figure it out. What Mary is saying is the Chicago style of writing requires double spacing. We don't do double spacing. There's no need for it. We're not writing on typewriters anymore. We are writing on a computer. Go ahead, Mary.
well, we don't need to print it out and edit it by hand, which is what a lot of bigger publishing houses do, which is why it takes them 2 years to develop your book. Of course, we're not even going to talk about how they change your voice. But there was another thing. I had it pulled up just a second ago. Oh, they also tell you to number your pages. We're not doing that.
No. We don't number the pages in the top right-hand corner. I don't need your name, your address, yada, yada, yada. That is for a research paper.
Right.
I don't want your pages numbered. I number the pages once I get the manuscript. Because there are extra pages that I have to put in there.
Most of us
Go ahead, Mary.
we write our story, starting with Once Upon a Time, and we go all the way down to the end, throw in a few chapters. We might have a dedication or an acknowledgement or put other works by this author or something like that. That's called the front matter and the back matter. But there are also other pages that Yvonne has to put in there. Number one, we have to make sure that every book is divisible by 4, because that's called a signature, and that's how the publishing the pages are printed out and folded and cut in the printing house. So if they aren't divisible by 4, Yvonne has to add blank pages, but she also has to add the copyright page, the title page, and there may be other things. It depends on how the author has done their table of contents.
Their bio, and we do 2 title pages. And the reason we do that is we have found that when you're doing a signature for one of your books, when you're autographing your book, if there is a page there with just the title of the book, not your name, just the title of the book, then there's plenty of room for you to add an autograph. Then on the next
personalized
page, it's
signature if you want to.
right.
And that is so important. I've always personalized my books. And when Aaron signed his first book, he called me shortly after. He said, "Mom, I just signed my first book. I'm so excited, but I think I may have messed it up. I said, why? He said, well, I just wrote, Mike, thanks for supporting my work. And I signed my name. I said, that's perfect.
Absolutely.
I said, and he's actually thinking of dedicating his next book to this Mike. It's a coworker who fully supports him. The man bought 2 hardcovers, one to read, one to just look at, and then he bought the Audible version so he could listen to it on his commute to work. He's made a fan, just like I've made a fan in Australia. You've made fans all over the world. There are people that will buy our books because they are our books. And then there are people who will buy our books because they are well written or they land on their Amazon page just at the right time. Or they've seen it on our marketing.
So let's talk about, since we're talking about the Chicago style of writing and why it is imperative in our literary world that it be right. Number one, and Mary and I have talked about this many, many times, you don't write a book like you're sending text messages. You don't use shorthand. You don't use that word I can't pronounce.
Acronym.
That one. You don't
You
use
can use an acronym if you explain it, but you don't use an acronym. Okay, everybody knows who NASA is.
Right.
They don't all know what the NASA actually means. It's an acronym, and NASA is big on acronyms.
They are.
And
That's the government for you. They love the initials.
yes, well, what it does is it makes life easier for them. But it stands for National Aeronautics and Space Administration, and it's
been out there. You're
I was
fading
a
in
child.
and out again.
I was a child when they started this stuff, and I'm talking a bitty baby girl. But if it's an acronym that people are familiar with, you can get away with just saying, "Oh, I'm writing a book about NASA." Everybody practically knows what that means. But don't just make up your own acronyms and put them in there without some way of identifying them. Nicknames also, especially if you're a novelist. I have a character in my Steep Steps novel. His name is Jameson Ewan McAllister III. But everybody, except for his wife, second wife, calls him Jim, J-E-M. They made an acronym out of his initials. And it just happened to sound good. It's like if back in the day when Ben Affleck was dating Jennifer Lopez, now she's just
Yep.
J-Lo. Everybody knows who J-Lo is.
Yep.
But they came up with a name. They called him Bennifer. That's a merging of names. You can do that as long as you make it clear and you don't just, oh, for God's sake, don't just tell us. Show us through dialogue or through action why things happen the way they happen in your book.
And this is why, ladies and gentlemen, in creative writing, as opposed to journalistic writing and technical writing, you have to create a scene. You have to build your characters. There was a line, now, I watch a lot of Murder, She Wrote. I know the outcome. I mean, I know what's going to happen. But there was a scene in one of the episodes I watched where Angela Lansbury said, "My books are character driven." And I thought, their writers got it. Why doesn't the national publishers get it?
And it's not even the publishers so much as it is the agents.
Right.
Because they are the watchdog at the gate. If you want to go with one of the big 6 publishing houses, you need an agent. You cannot get in the door without an agent or representation. Or as I say, a 15% loss on income. You have to have an agent who then goes and basically sells you. The agent needs to believe in you. And then they sell you to the publishers. Well, guess what? At Midnight Publishing, Yvonne and I believe in you. And we don't need to sell you to anybody. Yvonne puts the books up on Amazon. And folks, they're not just on Amazon. They're on Books A Million, Barnes and Noble. They're in, I can't even think of, Magus and Quinn, which is up in Minnesota, is a big bookstore. They're basically anywhere Amazon goes, they can get these books ordered, print on demand, shipped to their store, and you can sell them. But in today's, we're already past the first quarter of the 21st century. We don't need to look back at how they used to do it in the 1900s or the 1850s, when publishing first became a thing. We need to look forward. There's so many options. And what Yvonne does and what a handful of Midnight Publishing authors do is she makes the ads. She makes little videos, she makes still ads, she shares them with the authors, and then she posts them on 30-umpteen different websites. But then it's up to us, the author, and the author's network, which is other Midnight Publishing authors, to push that out into the world. And we've been doing it. And we've been selling books, 1 at a time, or in Carol Belavance's case, 15 at the time. I think Carol Belavance has a little genie or a bewitched in her pocket. She just says, I'm going to write a book. Okay, here we go. Y'all go, poof, buy my books. And they do. But she has a built-in audience, kind of.
She does. And the thing is, the reason that we require, and I keep going back to Chicago style of writing, the reason we require it is because when I get a book, I spend a lot of time on that book. I've spent a week on Christina Wessler's new book. And I will be spending a few more days to continue polishing it, plus doing the cover. And then I've got Mary's new book behind it, and I'm thinking, okay, when I get these 2 done, I'll have a minute to breathe. Well, I made the mistake of saying that before I got Christina's, after I got Paul Dawson's book done, and here comes 2 more books. So when I get a book that's written as a technical book and it's not a technical book, it's got to be rewritten. It's got to have dialogue. It's got to have scene setting. It's got to have character building. It's got to have a purpose. When you write a technical book, let's say I'm a brainiac, so I'm going to write a book on quantum physics, which is dry as bone dust. It's written from a completely objective point of view. You have footnotes, you have bibliographies, you have direct quotes, you have pros and cons, you have your own stated opinion.
You have sources.
You have sources. When you write from a journalistic point of view, let's say I'm a war correspondent, or I go on the crime beat and I write for a newspaper. The first thing they teach you in journalism is you have to know who, what, when, where, and how. And if you don't
Sometimes
know the
why.
how, and if you don't know all those things, you got to keep digging until you find them. Because if you don't, then it's just another technical piece of work. It has no meat to it. All three of these different writing sources have meat to them in their own way. But if you're going to write on a creative level, you don't want that book to be dry as bone dust. You want dialogue. You want interaction. You want scene setting. You want a plot. And you want an outcome. It's the same thing if I'm watching a decent movie, which there are not any out there anymore. You have three things. They are. You have a middle, a beginning, and an end. And more times than not, by the time I'm a third of the way through the beginning, I'm either bored, I've already figured it out. The writing is lame. The plot is even worse. There's no substance to the movie at all. There's no character building. Your actors are mechanical. There's no emotion in the setting of that scene because they're too busy either hopping in and out of bed or they're too busy blowing each other up. There's no meat to your writing. So when we ask for a Chicago style of writing, we want not just 1-inch margins all the way around, half-inch indentation, 12-point New Times Roman. We want a middle, a beginning, and an end with highs and lows. That's another thing, right? In creative writing, you have to have a high and a low. You can't have a monotone throughout the book. You've got to have a cliffhanger.
We were talking before the show about how my day had gone. And the highlight of my day is I've stripped the beds and made them, clean sheets. I mean, I've been doing this, but for the last 6 months, I might take 3 days to do that. Or I have to wait till Curtis comes home to get the sheets actually on the bed. So I've done that plus other things. But that's boring unless you find a way to make it not be boring. And it's not boring for me and Yvonne because her late husband had heart condition, so she knows a little bit of what I'm going through. And when you've had a heart attack, your whole life changes. But the people that are reading about it don't need to know all of the mundane, boring stuff. We want to know, how was your day besides the housework that you did? So if you're writing a story about a housewife who had a heart attack, you got to find a way to juice it up a little bit.
You got to deal with the struggle. You got to deal with the uncertainty. You got to deal with the hope at the end of the tunnel. You weave all of this in a story, and when you bring in the other characters, you bring in their uncertainties, their thoughts, their moods, their actions, the consequences, the what ifs, and it can't. I have read some books that in my lifetime I have read many, many, many books, probably more books than most people read in a year. Some I truly, truly love. Some I just absolutely would not even try to get through. I had the ability to get through them, but I did not have the wherewithal to get through them. Because you cannot describe a blade of grass but so many times.
I'm reading a Dean Koontz novel right now, and I'm enjoying it. But as I'm reading it actually partly to help me with my sequel to Steep Steps, but for a different reason. I mean, he's a highly successful author, just like Stephen King is highly commercially successful. Danielle Steele. People hear her name and they go, oh, she got a new book, I gotta go buy it. Why? It's gonna be just like every other book she's written. You have a heroine and a hero and a bad guy and a bad girl and vomit out the formula. But the Dean Koontz book is filled, absolutely filled with adjectives and fluff and fillers. And he has a way of pulling it off, but after a while it gets old.
It gets redundant.
That's like Jodi Picoult. I loved her style when I first read the first book. I think the first book I read from her was Little Small Things or something like that. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Went out and got another one. I loved it. Not as much. The third or fourth or fifth time I read her book, I'm like, oh my God, I know what it is. Because I kept getting fortunately I was able to get some at the little free library and at the regular library. And so I could read them without buying them. But after a while, I was getting tired of them, and I realized, and she's a widely diversified subject. She writes about all kinds of things, like Egyptologists, because they're different than regular archaeologists, and medical issues, and everything is like kind of way out there, which I like that. It teaches me something. But after a while, you realize the woman is a walking cliche. She has written the same phrase so many times in her own books that she's made them cliche. Not that they would be cliche anywhere else, but they're just repetitive.
And that is another thing that we don't like seeing in creative writing. When a word, a phrase, a sentence, a paragraph becomes repetitive, it's time to rethink what you're doing. And the reason for that is if you don't keep your audience engaged, they're not going to go buy that third, fourth, or fifth book. Case in point, y'all know I love my drag queens. And they won't shut up. I don't care what I do. They won't shut up. Penelope's biting at the bit. But when they come to life, you never know what's going to come out of their mouth. They're the same characters, but for each book or each scene, a different character steals the moment. What was the sentence that I gave you that Penelope said? You're like the comma in the middle of Penelope, my little comedic drag queen. She told a police detective, you're like the comma in the middle of a very bad sentence. I don't know where that came from. But it's those little things that you remember that you want to know what else is coming.
And you know one thing about Penelope. She loves her hairspray.
She does.
And she will use that hairspray for you,
or
against you. And it doesn't matter. She knows which occasion to use it and how much to use it and with what force. I mean, she might bop you upside the head with a hairspray can.
Exactly.
Or she may spray you in the face with hairspray. Or she may just give you a little updo. But you can always count on Penelope for having a big bag and hairspray and a smart mouth.
Yep.
But she's not going to say the same thing in every book. How many books have you had the drag queens in now?
Let's see. There's the Pink Canary, When Fates Collide, Mardi Gras Belle, When Fates Collide, Arm Candy, Murder in the Village, Duct Tape, Tarp, and a Shovel. Now I'm working on the sixth one where they've gone back to Key West, and that's where that statement was, you're a comma in the middle of a very bad sentence.
And that
do what, Mary?
Well, finish your thought, then I'm going to get back to the CMOS, the Chicago Manual of Style.
Okay. I don't know where that sentence came from. there it was, and it's Penelope's dry humor that keeps the rest of the girls on their toes. I mean, she's ready now to go to this other nightclub and go through like a bunch of renegades through the doors after there's girls missing. And of course, Vicky and Lola are trying to rein her back in, but oh no, she got the hairspray. She's going out the door because she's impulsive.
There was a time in my life when I would have been like Penelope. I've had to slow down.
But back to Chicago style of writing.
And commas.
Yes.
There are so many writers who just simply don't know how to use a comma. And they don't know what a serial comma is, or that the serial comma is also called the Oxford comma. And that's just as simple as saying Yvonne, comma, Mary, comma, and Andrea are all authors. Or the style Chicago Manual likes to use is red, white, and blue.
Right.
But you put the comma after every word. If you have 3 words in a series, which is why it's called a serial, then you put a comma after each word and before and. But just because you have an and in a sentence, that does not mean it needs a comma. Mary and Yvonne are doing a podcast today on the Chicago Manual of Style. You don't need a comma there. You just don't need a comma. Commas are, I like to think of commas as spices.
Yep.
If you have just enough, your meal tastes great. If you don't have enough, it's bland. If you have too much, it's over the top. And there are rules. And it's up to you as a writer to know what those rules are. There are places that you put. Another one that I see a lot of times is like Mary talked to Yvonne, comma, her publisher, comma, about so-and-so. Or you could say Mary talked to her publisher, comma, Yvonne Mason, about so-and-so. You don't need the comma if it's weird. It's kind of, and that's where it's tricky. Which word you put first, whether it's the name or the title, it will determine whether you need a comma to offset the whole thing.
The rule of thumb is this. Let's go back to Mary's original sentence. Mary, Andrea, and Yvonne are all authors. Okay. If you say Mary's an author, Andrea's an author, Yvonne's an author, those are 3 separate sentences. The way you make a compound sentence, now this goes back to sentence structure that you learned in English like we did. It was English 101 many, many years ago. Hated diagramming those sentences. And instead of having 3 sentences, you make a compound sentence. And that compound sentence is you take the 3 nouns, add a verb, and an adjective, and you don't take up as much space. But in order to do that right, you've got to have the serial commas.
See Dick! See Dick run!
Who gave me a headache? You know what else irritates me is when people put colons instead of semicolons. Had that issue with the book I just did. Now, if you don't know what the difference is between a colon and a semicolon, this is the difference. A colon is 2 dots, one here and one here. This is a colon. A semicolon is a dot with a comma on the bottom. A semicolon.
Just the semi.
And the semicolon means that you have two complete sentences in one block.
It also is like, if you think of it this way, if you put a comma there, it's like a yield sign. A semicolon is a yield to right of way, and a period is a full stop. But the colon has a whole nother purpose. The colon says, hey, 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 I have something to tell you. Pay attention. Because you can write a sentence that says, can't think of one right now.
The contents of this book are colon. And
But
then
you don't-
you list.
If you have a list, but you don't do that if you only have maybe 2 or 3 things. The contents of this book are table of contents, 48 chapters, and the author's biography. You can do that with commas. But if you have, I would say, more than 3, then you need the colon. Typically, creative writing does not need a colon at all.
And the thing is, where you put that colon determines the structure of the sentence.
Yes.
For instance, the winds came, the house blew down, and somebody was in it. The winds came, the house blew down, and somebody was in it. You want a break between the winds came, because what did the winds do when the winds came? What action did it cause? It caused the house to blow down. Somebody was in the house. That was the consequence of the winds blowing the house down. You want a break in that sentence. There was another one that they use as a meme, and I can't remember what it is. It completely destroyed the whole structure of the sentence.
Oh, there's several of them out there. And the comma will make the sentence say something different. Right now I can't think of one either. But you know what? I'm going to find one because I have the capability to do that.
And that's why you use commas, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pause in the thought. You want that reader to read the first part of that sentence and then pause and then read the second part of that sentence. The comma is used instead of parentheses as well. Don't send me a book filled with parentheses or dots and dashes. And we will get onto that shortly, because I will take them out
I've
every
got
time.
one for you. Let's
Okay.
eat, Grandma. Or
Yep.
let's eat, Grandma. If you say let's
The
eat,
com-
Grandma, without the comma, then you
It
want to
means-
eat Grandma.
The connotation is
say-
you're going to eat grandma.
If you say let's eat with a comma, Grandma, then that means you're talking to Grandma.
Your grandmother.
Jane enjoys cooking her dog and her family.
Without the
Jane
comma,
enjoys cooking, comma, her dog, comma, and her family.
the comma gives you pause to think about the rest of the sentence. The rest of the sentence is part of that whole thought process, but there is a pause. For instance, if I'm talking to Mary and I say, let's go eat let's go eat, and I leave it there, then the place I'm going to eat is open. Or, as she said, let's eat grandma. No, yeah, we're not Hansel and Gretel reversed. You you have to think about what you're writing and how you're writing it and how it is going to be perceived when it is read by others. And I have read books where I've had to go back and reread whole paragraphs because the dynamic of that paragraph was messed up because they didn't use commas in the right way.
Well, it's
If-
so easy to leave out a simple little word like at when you're writing. You get in the flow and you forget. You just write over. Let's eat Captain Hiram's for lunch. What about let's eat at Captain Hiram's for lunch? But you also
There you go.
kind of need that comma after Hiram's before for lunch. The whole
Because
purpose
if you don't, the connotation is when. Go ahead.
the whole purpose of punctuation is to make it easier and enjoyable for your readers. There have been authors who experiment and don't use any punctuation. I don't read them.
Me either. The written word is a whole different ball game than the spoken word
Or the texted word.
or the texted word. When you read the written word out loud and you're reading and you're going back and what did I just read? Then that tells me one of two things. The sentence is too long, the sentence had no punctuation, or there were parentheses within that sentence that made no sense at all. For instance, Mary, parentheses, and author, as I knew her, end of parentheses, was at an event today. We don't need parentheses. They're unnecessary.
You can use commas if you want to have that information. The parentheses to me only need to be used in more technical writing and journalistic
Yes.
writing. They have no place in fiction at all. Now they might have a place in some nonfiction, not memoirs.
They are in my true crimes because I have them at the end of a quotation or at the end of a trial transcript because they're at the bibliography in the back, because by law I have to put that source somewhere.
Yeah.
So at the end of a trial transcript or at the end of a quotation, that's where that parentheses will go, where it says News Press Journal 1997 John Doe. Because then that way the writer of that particular article gets credit for that quotation. That's where your parentheses go. They do not go in fiction.
Never. I
Never.
cannot imagine a single circumstance where fiction requires parentheses. Because imagine your fiction, and I'm loath to do this because I know another person who used to do this all the time, but it has a purpose. Imagine your fiction as a movie or a TV show. How are you going to put parentheses in the script? How are you going to explain their purpose? You can't. The whole thing is, and most writers have heard, show, don't tell. And what that means is, don't tell me from the author's perspective. See, the author basically is God of this world. Whether it's a made-up imaginary world or it's happening in Portland, Oregon. It doesn't matter. It's, if you can imagine it as a film of any sort, whether it's a YouTube documentary or a Netflix episode or HBO blockbuster or something bigger. Think about how it's going to be portrayed, because, and there's a whole nother beast between your novel and a script, screenwriting. That's a whole nother kind of monkey shines. But and I kind of remember when my husband, when I asked him if he would read Steep Steps and give me some thoughts on it, give me his notes. He said, no, but if you read it to me, I'll tell you what I see. And there was when we first started doing it, he would just sit back in his chair and he'd close his eyes. I said, are you even listening? He said, I am. I'm imagining this is a movie. I can see it in my head with you reading it better than if I was reading it myself. And there are people that are just more visual than others. But the people that are going to pick up your books and read them, those are the people that are going to be able to see what you see if you tell it the right way. If you say, well, I'm the author and I know what's going on, so I'm just going to dump all this information. Nobody wants that. We want to be sucked into the book. Have you ever read Diana Gabaldon's Outlander?
No.
It's a time travel book.
I know they made a series out of it.
Oh gosh, did they make a series. And then some. It became kind of like the Game of Thrones, where the more you watched it, the less it stuck to the book. Because what happens when you give your rights to Hollywood or sell your rights to Hollywood, then it happened with Star Wars.
Yep.
George Lucas had a specific idea, a specific world. Then he let Disney get their hands on it. We won't even go into that. But whether it's sci-fi or fantasy or whatever, you have the story, and then you sell your rights to, we'll just call it Hollywood, and then they can do whatever they want to with it. You might have some creative input. You might be considered the producer, but ultimately you give up your opportunity to make it the way you want it.
You can even change the character from one gender to the next, from one ethnicity to the next, from one characteristic build to the next, and they do it on a regular. So another one that comes to mind is the Jack Reacher series. When that first came out, Reacher's not 5'4" and handsome. Reacher's rugged and tall and built like a brick house and looks like he'd been through hell and back.
Yeah.
He's not a pretty man in the books because he's lived a rough life. But Hollywood...
Pretty men sell tickets.
Hollywood gave him to what's-his-face? Tom Cruise.
That was wrong.
So what we're trying to say, ladies and gentlemen, is along with this Chicago style of writing, you have to understand you're not writing for yourself. Yes, it's your story, but you're not writing for yourself, because if you're writing for yourself, why are you publishing it?
If you're writing,
you're writing it to
a journal.
Right, do a journal. Never publish it. You're writing to reach other people. You're writing for the enjoyment that other people get from reading something that you've written. And if you don't get past, oh, this is all mine, all mine, all mine, all mine, then you lose yourself and your creative talent because you don't understand the concept.
We were just talking about
of creative writing. And creative writing is just that. It is it's a creative craft.
Absolutely. And
that we. Go ahead.
If you are, I put a post on LinkedIn. Oh, I think I've put it everywhere. but I've gotten a good bit of feedback from it on LinkedIn about, now I forgot. It just slipped right out of my head.
It'll come back.
It started a conversation about what makes a real writer. Oh, the post was about, it was somebody, I was quoting somebody who said, writing is hard. It's a solitary job. It isolates you. And I quoted it with the little meme that it was on, only so I could say, I don't know about you people, but for me, writing is like breathing. It's not hard to breathe, not anymore, but it's not hard to live. This is what I live for. Writing for me is, yes, it's a solitary job, because I'll be damned if somebody's going to come in my office and micromanage me or try to tell me how to write my book. It's my book. Leave me alone so I can get it done. But the actual physical aspect of it, I love it. And the one or two people were like, yes, I agree, and da da da. And this one woman who is also an author came back and she said, the people who think writing is hard aren't real writers.
Exactly.
And
They're
so
not.
That started the conversation of how they think they can use AI and TikTok to say, oh, do you remember back in the 70s probably, there was a Krispy Kreme treat commercial where the woman went into the kitchen and she made Krispy Kreme treats in like 5 minutes. Doesn't take but a minute to, throw it together, put it in the pan and let it cool. And so when she comes out to serve them to the family, she's got powder or flour on her face, and she pulls her hair down so it looks like she's been working hard. And she comes out, she goes, "You're worth all the effort." And that's what these TikTok AI users are looking for. They want the easy way out, but they want people to think it's a hard job. Folks, let me back up before you start sending me a bunch of hate mail.
Please bring it.
It took me 40 years to get out of my own way to write my first book. Had it done, all I needed to do was just get it published, and still got to get that one to you, Yvonne. But it took me 8 years to write Steep Steps, but all of that wasn't writing. It was dumping out of my brain what I thought I wanted to say, and then going back and going, well, I don't know what sexual compulsion really is. I should probably find somebody who knows. And I've never been an addict. I've not really known many. How do you treat addiction to anything? Never been cheated on. It's like, but I was psychologically abused, so I understood the dynamics of emotional, psychological, and financial abuse. So I could put some of my own stuff in there, but there were things in this book that came up, just like Yvonne was talking about her drag queens. You write what your characters tell you, and then you go back and you say, ooh, will that fly? I don't know if that will. So you go do your research, you go talk to people. In fact, my older sister told me I cursed too much in the book. I'm like, I never cursed. I didn't say a thing that was out of line. My characters, on the other hand, have a real potty mouth, some of them. But I realize, sometimes you can take things to an extreme. But it took me 8 years to get that book done because I had to write it, and then I had to rewrite it, and I had to research it, and I had to think about it, and I had to come up with a title and a cover, and and then I had to let it sit for a minute. Because if you send something out immediately, and Yvonne can answer this, what do we do if people send us unfinished work?
I send it back to them.
And what do we do if they send us unfinished work that's finished, but they haven't edited, and they say, hey, take it down, I need to fix it?
I send it back to them. And I take it down and put it at the back of the pile. Ladies and gentlemen, you never, ever, 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 ever send your first draft anywhere. Your first draft is just that. Your first draft is your first draft. Especially if it's a book that you know nothing about the subject matter. And when I say that, like Mary, when I did my first book on my drag queens, The Pink Canary, I knew what I wanted to write about. I knew the basis of the story. The basis of the story started itself on a trip up to Melbourne Airport, and I was dictating it to a friend of mine. However, the dynamics of the story, the meat of the story, the breadth of the story had to be verified by many, many, many weeks of watching videos, of researching queens, of finding a queen that would read my book and say, yeah, we don't use cuss words. We say, oh, Mary, did y'all know that? They don't use cuss words. They call each other bitch, and they say, oh, Mary. And so any curse words that were in there had to come out. Do you know it takes a drag queen performer 8 solid hours to get dressed?
I don't doubt that.
All that beauty's not done in an hour and a half, honey. You just don't slap on some lipstick and a little eyeshadow and go out on stage. No. Everything that they do is exaggerated for a reason. They are on stage. The high hair, the wicked face, all of that has a purpose. Their body structure has a purpose. They have to fake people into believing that they're really the female impersonator they're impersonating. And I've seen some gorgeous drag queens. If that book had not been made believable, it would not have gotten the traction it got in that community. And because of that, my queens have evolved, especially Penelope. God love her.
Yeah.
But if you don't know your subject matter, don't pretend that you do and then try to write about it. Because when you do, you come off looking foolish and non-credible.
Yeah.
I worked on A Voice from the Grave and A Mad Hatter for 4 solid years. A Mad Hatter was the product of a term paper I did in college on Jack the Ripper. The book is not about Jack the Ripper. But the research that I did on Jack the Ripper and the east side of London at that time became the foundation for the book. And I bought a lot of books, I did a lot of research. I paid for a map of the east side of London in 1888, which was not cheap. And I mapped out the story on this map. It was a street map that had all the streets and the Thames River and the places where the girls were killed. It had it all. Same thing with The Voice from the Grave, which is set at Andersonville Prison, which was the last prison camp of the Confederacy during the War of Northern Aggression. And the first person that says anything other than that and comes at me, yeah, we'll have a discussion. But what I did was pulled all the battles, all the generals, the history of Andersonville, why it came to be, and put a fiction book together. So if you say, okay, I'm going to write a fiction book about the Everglades. Well, honey, let me tell you what. If you don't live here in Florida, and if you don't know that Florida is a state of swamp, and if you don't know that the Indians were here before we were, and that Florida at one time was owned by Spain, then England, then France, then Spain again. If you don't know that there were battles fought here, if you don't know what goes on at the Everglades, don't write about the Everglades until you do your research, because there will be people that live here that will call you out.
Yes.
So when we say make your writing believable and creative, it's not for your benefit so much as it is for your readers. There have been places that I've written about that people say, "Oh, I know that place. I've been there." Mary has too. Oh, Portland, Oregon. Yeah, I know that street.
I know a man who was raised in Portland, and he read the book. He said, "Mary, when did you live in Oregon?" I said, "Never did." He said, "How did you get it?" So he said, "It was like walking down the street with you. It was like going up into the mountains with you. You know, how did you do that?" I said, "Research, honey."
So, and even if you live somewhere, do your research in that area that you live if that's what you're writing about, because there's hidden treasures
Yes.
within that city that you live in. Now, if you're making up a universe, a city, a state, another world, all of those rules are out the window. Because it's fantasy. Anything can happen. Roy Owenby, I love his books. And I don't even like fantasy. Him and Aaron. His books are amazing. And I don't like fantasy or sci-fi.
And that's because you've never read good fantasy or sci-fi.
Exactly. Well, I read Edgar Rice Burroughs years and years and years ago.
He was really good with Tarzan.
He was. But the rest of it, not so much. Redundancy at its worst. So we're going to go back to grammar. If you are having a dialogue with someone in your book, and Joe Blow is saying, "Susie, wait, I got something to tell you," and Susie turns around and she goes, "Hold on a second, and then you put 3 dots.
No.
No. It's either
Ellipses, which are what those 3 dots are called, should never be used in fiction because they have a specific purpose. Just like you would never use a question mark for an apostrophe. You just don't mix up your punctuation marks. An ellipsis is what those 3 dots are called, and they are specifically to hold the space of quoted material that is not directly quoted.
Either at the front of that quotation or the back of that quotation. Because if you're quoting from the middle of a quotation, you have to let your reader know there's something before it and there's something behind it.
And the purpose of this is because when you're writing for a newspaper or even a magazine, magazines don't use them as much as newspapers do. It's because if I'm quoting Yvonne Mason, the author of Silent Scream, said that she was, or said, quotation marks, my books have been sold all over the world. I could end the sentence there, and I could put the quotation mark there. But if I want to talk a little bit more about it and not get into all the details and save space, then I could put an ellipsis there and then go including France and New Zealand. That implies there's more information that's missing. That's what an ellipsis is for.
And
There
when
are
you
a couple
fill
of
your
ways I would handle the thinking phase. You know, like if Susie or I don't know who you said in your example, she started talking and then she stopped talking. Number one, you can just say that. Susie answered John, but then hesitated. And then you can go into what she said and then go into what he said. Or you can say, Susie answered John, or Susie said, I'll be there and put a period or an in dash, a small dash, which implies that she interrupted herself. Or you can say, Susie answered John, I'll be right there, but she cut herself off before she finished. There are a lot of ways to show, don't tell. The ellipsis is something that we use in text all the time. We use it in emails. I'm guilty of it too. I don't even know why I started using it, but I try not to. But you don't want
let's
to
talk
have
about
that ellipsis there.
Let's talk about M dashes and dashes. Ladies and gentlemen, when I get a book that's filled with M dashes and parentheses and ellipses, I'm thinking, what is wrong with this author? Do they not know how to write? And the answer to that is more than likely they never took a creative writing course. You can get them online. In fact, the Great Courses has this.
Building great
has
sentences, exploring
it's
the
the-
writer's
Craft.
craft.
You can go online and get it. You can order the disc. But they talk about the things that we are talking about. I had to take, believe it or not, when I was getting my degree in criminal justice, I had to take a creative writing class, and you know why?
Reports.
Because I had to take the technical part of it. It was part of that course for writing reports. Reports are as dry as bone dust. But there's a way to write them so that it's concise, it has all the information, and you don't go on for days, because nobody's going to read a report that's 6 miles long. They're not going to do it.
But that brings me to something that my little bone to pick today. It has nothing to do with the Chicago Manual of Style, but it has to do with what people perceive. Nobody wants to read a long report. Most people don't like to read long emails or really long texts. They will, however, sit down and read an entire novel without, in fact, A Murder in the Village. I got that book one day and I read it in maybe 3 hours. It was captivating. I just read it and I couldn't put it down. But I've had people tell me, I don't have time to read your novel, when I've written them a factual email about something. A novel is a non-fiction book. It doesn't have to be long, but it usually is. Longer than a short story for sure. But it's definitely not an email or a text. If somebody tells you, I don't have time to read your novels, and they're talking about a letter or communication, they don't know what the word novel means.
Also, when people say, well, I don't read, excuse me, how many times do you pick up your phone and read the text messages? And you type text messages back. How many times do you go in and do your emails? You read. So when people say, I don't read, I look at them like, what's missing in this conversation? You read, but you choose what you read.
Choose not to read books.
You would rather read a text message that has the shorthand of a 3-year-old than broaden your horizons in your brain by reading a book, and you can get something out of every book you read. I learned that very early on from my mother when she said read with an open mind. As a child, I read dictionaries, I read encyclopedias, I read National Geographics, I read whatever I could get my hands on because I wanted to learn. Even in fiction, if it's written right and it's not regurgitated from the book before or 3 books before, the reader learns something. They learn a new location, they learn new words. If you don't know a word, look it up. They learn behavior patterns. They learn consequences of actions. They learn life's lessons. So there is an advantage to reading. And also with reading, it makes your mind work. Like Mary said, when you're reading a book, you can get lost in that book and it becomes like a movie. This book that I just finished doing the first edit on, Christina Wessler's new book, The Raven's Flight, let me tell you what, I wanted to get in that book and throttle Thaddeus myself. He's just a royal pain. But that's the kind of, and I'm the publisher. I'm not reading this book for fun. I'm reading this book for grammatical errors, for punctuation, for indentation, for word structure. Not changing the writer's voice at all, but believe you me, I wanted to get in that book and get Thaddeus because he's just a royal pain in my neck. This is the 3rd book that he showed up in, and he needs to go away somehow. But he's the protagonist. He is the one that keeps this book alive. Now, if they kill him off, I don't know who they'll get to be their thorn in the side. But this is the kind of book that you as a writer want to write. Not filled with em dashes, not filled with ellipses, not filled with parentheses, not filled with not knowing where a paragraph ends and begins. And let's talk about paragraphs, Mary. What is the purpose of a paragraph?
Oh my gosh. A paragraph is basically a thought or a scene. It's not a stream of consciousness. It's not a place for an info dump. If you want to go back to the Dick and Jane books,
Do we have
every
to?
one of those Dick, see Dick, that means look at Dick. And then that's a paragraph. Because then the next one is see Jane, see Sally, see Spot, see Puff. Those are all individual paragraphs, but they're really badly written. So let's go to something else.
One sentence paragraphs have no business being in a novel.
Not really. Some do and some don't. Because some of the short sentences give you a little bit of an impact. Like, okay, let's see. And let me pull up something I'm actually working on. Because I have a hard time some days
That's all right.
thinking outside of my own
Well,
box. 'Cause I don't-
the one sentence paragraph that comes to my mind, simply because I've been entrenched in the Bible all my life, is there's a whole storyline going on, and then at the very end there's a one sentence paragraph, and it's Jesus wept.
Yes.
That was powerful.
That's what I'm talking about. A very strong one. I mean, it's 2 words, but
Yeah.
it's one of the
But
strongest options.
but
you've
it's got to be powerful enough to stand on its own. Because if you have a whole book of 3 or 4 lines of one sentence paragraphs, it gets monotonous.
It gets monotonous and it's hard on the eyes because a
It's very hard on the
paragraph is
eyes.
indented. If you have one sentence of less than 5 words, and the next one is the same, and the next one is the same, and the next one is the same, it looks like you've written a poem.
You're fading in and out again, and I think it's when you go online to look at something.
I'm not online, but can you hear me now?
It's getting better.
Okay.
No,
Maybe that's not a good idea. Let me
Mary's
try.
computer has today. Mary's computer has its own mindset.
Well, I'm back with nothing in front of me now.
That's okay.
The
One
thing is,
sentence paragraph.
your paragraphs have to be, it's one person doing one action or speaking. So, Andrea said she's working on a Viking novel. And then, well, actually, Andrea said, comma, quotation mark. She's working on a Viking novel, but Yvonne said she's working on a Viking novel too. If those are in a quotation, that's not going to work. Neither is it going to work to have Andrea sat down, Yvonne sat down, then Mary joined them. That would be 3 separate paragraphs. So Andrea sat down where? To do what? Why? Why did Yvonne join her? How did Mary get invited to the party? They all live in 3 different cities. Where did they meet?
You have to build on it, ladies and gentlemen.
Right.
There has to be a reason for that one sentence paragraph. It can't just be a fluff piece, just a space filler. And if it is a one sentence paragraph, you better make damn sure you indent it.
Yes. And don't forget the power of the little conjunctions.
Yes.
Because there are a lot of writers who like to jam a lot of information into one paragraph that needs to be 5 or 6 paragraphs, but it could have been one if they say, Johnny went to school at the same time that Martha went to school. That's one sentence. It could be one paragraph. Or you can start the next sentence with, however, Billy was homeschooled, and so he didn't go anywhere. It all has to be built upon, and it has to make sense. And you can't make sense if you try to put too much information in one paragraph because you think it's connected.
And we have gone back to my biggest pet peeve, ladies and gentlemen. And if you are in a creative writing class run by a publisher, and they tell you this, and you come to me and say, well, this is what my teacher told me, I'm going to tell you they were wrong. And that is, if there is a conversation, if someone is speaking, and an action takes place, then they speak again. Do not put that in one paragraph. Because the dialogue is separate from the action every time.
With an exception.
With an exception.
If you say, Kara told us her professor said it all goes in one paragraph, as Kara was sending in her manuscript or whatever. You make that action be part of that first comment, first sentence. But you can't say Kara said her professor told her to make one big paragraph, and then in that same paragraph say Kara then sent in her manuscript. It has to be connected with the little word like as or while. Like I said, conjunctions. These conjunctions are the words that join sentences.
And if it confuses me as a publisher and as a reader, I guarantee you it's going to confuse the general public.
Yes.
Because there is a acronym we use here. It's called the KISS method. And it's called Keep It Simple.
I say sweetie, she says something else.
And the reason for that, again, in my writing class many years ago, 20 to be exact, we were told, and this is from a journalistic standpoint at that time, that 99% of the population reads on an 8th grade level. Now that was 20 years ago. I don't know what they're reading on now because we have 3 new generations of people. Probably reading on a 5th or 4th grade level because most of them can't put 2 words together without being shorthand. So when you are writing in a creative vein, you have to remember the audience is the masses. You might be as brilliant as Einstein. Your vocabulary may be so high that it reaches beyond the sky. But if you want to reach the masses, you have to understand how to write for the masses. You can't write 1,20 words throughout your entire book. 1 or 2, yeah, because that causes someone to want to, okay, what's that word mean? I've done that myself. Gone and looked up a word. Because it was an archaic word. You have to understand that you're writing on a level that most people read at. And if that is too much of a chore, then please get another craft. Find something else to do.
That doesn't mean you dumb it down by any means. You write what you write, but don't get over zealous with your vocabulary.
When a 50-cent word will work in place of a $2 word so you can reach the population, use the 50-cent word. Number 1, you're reaching the masses. Number 2, people don't want to read a book that they're going to get bogged down in. They don't have the time to get bogged down in a book. They want something they can read on their commute to work, on a plane, while they're waiting in a doctor's office, while they're waiting to pick their kid up in the school line, while they're waiting to get their hair done. They want to be able to sit down and read without having to fight through the words with looking it up every 5 minutes. They're not going to do that. You will lose your reader base. Am I right?
I have read books where I kept a notepad to write the words down that I didn't understand because the authors used too many. And I love every now and then to look up words, but I don't want to have my reading flow disrupted to go find out what this word means.
And that goes along, and y'all say, but y'all are supposed to be talking about a Chicago style of writing. That goes along with the Chicago style of writing. You keep it, and it's the KISS method. Just keep it simple. Keep it based on the masses, on what the masses are reading. A case in point, I've been watching television since it came out when I was a little bitty girl, and I can tell you, the writing that is coming out of Hollywood has really been dumbed down. There's no imagination, there's no expectation, there's no plot, there's no characterization, there's wham, bam, think, man, we're done, move on to the next one. And this younger generation, they don't want the Dr. Zhivagos. They want reality TV, Married at First Sight. Why? Why?
Well,
what value is there in that?
People like reality TV because it makes them feel superior, makes them feel like, well, my life isn't so bad. But you know what I've noticed?
But they don't understand.
I know I mentioned this in one of my books, but I have a definite pet peeve about Hollywood and book writers also, but it's mostly in Hollywood, where they show people doing mundane things like brushing their teeth. And it uses up 5 minutes of the show. Why? Are you that dull that you can't write a decent story? And
The same reason a disaster scene takes up 8 to 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Whether it's a fight scene, whether it's a battle scene, whether it's something blowing up, it takes up 8 to 10 minutes of that show. And the reason for that is because they've forgotten how to write dialogue.
Yeah.
And again, I've watched these shows dozens of times, but it's like everything else I do. Every time I watch them, I see something different. Midsummer Murders is a great English series. And every time I watch it, I see something different. Last night I watched one, and it dawned on me when I was watching the disaster scene, it never showed until the end how the murdered victim was murdered. It just showed him falling backward. You don't know if he was shot, if he was stabbed. You don't know anything until the end. And that is the way we want you all to write. We don't want to be able to figure out what the ending's going to be until we're at the end. Most books I can figure out, even if I'm not doing them for publishing, because I've read so much. And there are tales. People write with tales. Writers write with tales.
I have a question for you.
I have an answer, I'm sure. If not, I'll make one up.
I know you will. When you were reading Nacho Killian,
Yes.
did you see that ending coming?
Not really.
Good.
I knew it had something to do with one of those women, but I wasn't sure what. And of course, I was busy trying to make it work. That book was like to drive me crazy. Nacho Killian, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the type of graphic novels that we publish. It's a short little book. It's about a gentleman who, these two women of a certain age sit in a bar on a certain night of the week, and they've been watching him and he's been watching them, and they've been watching each other watch each other. And the crux of the story is there's a purpose for that. And I'm not going to tell you the purpose because you got to get the book and read it.
Let's just say Nacho is not what he seems.
Exactly. So this is what you want to do. You want to leave Easter eggs.
Yeah.
But you don't want to give away the ending of the book at the beginning of the book, because then what's the purpose of the book? And then there's been books that I've read that when I got to the ending, I went,
What?
how dare they? How dare they? And The Exorcist was one of those books. I read and read and read and read, and
It was
then
unfulfilling.
I went, what? What? There was no logic in that ending. Well, there was. And the logic was that the reader was supposed to believe that evil overcomes good, and evil never overcomes good. Never. Maybe in the short term, but not in the long term. We're all doomed. So, what else have we got, madam?
Well, let's see. We've talked about one of the things that Chicago Manual of Style says right off the bat is when you get ready to submit your manuscript, be sure it is complete.
Please.
And that's one of our big bugaboos over here. Don't be sending a poem a day or a poem a week or a short story every now and then or a chapter. You put it all together, and you really and truly, if you go to midnightpublishing.org, you will find our submission requirements. They're not guidelines. This is what we require. And we might have called them guidelines, but they're really requirements. We use the Chicago Manual of Style as our guide for how to create our requirements. Send it in complete. If you have an idea for the cover, tell us what that idea is. If you've got a sketch or a drawing, you can send it, but don't expect us to use it. There is not a publisher in the world that's worth his salt that will use every cover every author sends in. Some of them are good ideas, and
In fact,
we can
I
build
don't
on
know
them.
any publisher that does.
Self-publishers. But I mean, even the vanity publishers like Durant's, they tell you don't send us any covers. So you send in a complete manuscript, you send in an idea if you've got one for the cover. Best bet is just to let it go. Y'all, I've learned. A year ago, I sent Yvonne my first manuscript. This month, I sent her my 26th. I've already done 25. So I learned to trust her, to trust the process. I learned to just let it go and let it happen. She knows what she's doing. I cannot tell you how many times people have told me, now bear in mind these are people that are scammers and spammers and trying to sell me something. I was immediately drawn in by your covers. I went to your Amazon page and all of your covers are beautiful. But you don't blah, 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 blah. Let me sell you such and such to make it better. But when we do an event together, the covers on my books draw the crowds to my table. They see the mermaid and they just go nuts. I can't wait to see what you do with my next mermaid book. Excited.
I haven't read the whole thing. I've read a couple of the stanzas, but I haven't read the whole thing because I've been working on this other one.
It's all
But
right.
it's going to be interesting.
It's not for children.
No, it is not for children, and the cover will reflect that. The thing is, ladies and gentlemen, when we talk about the fact that writing is easy, writing is very easy. Writing is extremely easy. The hard part is making that product sellable. And that's the key word. How do you make that product sellable? Well, I'm going to tell you what. Every day I get book covers from Amazon and Penguin and different markets out there going, here's our latest releases. And I go look at those book covers and I go, why? Why? Boring. Very boring. If the book cover's boring, the book's got to be boring. If you don't understand the concept that the product is not just your manuscript, the product is the entire book, front to back. And if that product is not, as they say in the real estate world, curb appealing, people aren't going to even look at it, much less pick it up. We have set a standard here at Midnight Publishing, and it's my fault. I'm guilty. I did it. But the first thing we ask our authors is, do you want to blend in or do you want to stand out? Well, I had a potential author say, well, I really don't care about standing out or blending in. I want what I want for my book. And I said, well, then maybe you need to go someplace else.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Because I would rather have the authors that I have that understand the process, that understand what we do and why we do it, and understand that our covers have set a standard. Our children's books have set a standard. And we don't go below that standard for anybody. If you want what you want, then I suggest you go someplace else. I've lost authors because of that, and I don't care. It's their loss, it's not our loss. And the reason for that is if a book cover grabs me I'm going to pick up that book. If I see it on Amazon, I'm going to go to the sample and I'm going to read the sample. I'm going to read the synopsis. I'm going to find out what's in that book and why. The front of the book starts your story. The back of the book draws you in. So the back of the book has got to be just as appealing as the front cover. The back cover has got to smack you right in the face too. And the synopsis has got to make you go, ooh, oh, ooh, what? Huh. I might need this book. Because if it's not appealing, people are just going to pass it on by. Because you have people that are not going to spend their hard-earned money for a book that they're not going to like once they get into it. You know what they're going to do? They're going to send it back to, especially on Kindle and Audible, they're going to send it back to the company, and the company's going to do a chargeback, and you're going to lose money.
Yep.
And all of our books, if they qualify, go up on hardback, paperback, Audible, and Kindle. And you go, well, I'm not sure about Audible. Trust me. We sell Audible books all over the world.
If it
All
was for
over.
the Audible books, some books would not get sold at all, because overseas that and digital are the only options in certain
Exactly.
countries.
So if you are, and I use Amazon's Audible window. I use what they give me as a tool. Is it AI? Of course it is. But these voices that I use learn. So
Well-
when some, go ahead.
Amazon's AI is free.
Absolutely. I like free.
Audible, with a skilled, talented voice actor who has the proper equipment to edit it and set it up and do all this, especially if you're looking for a cinematic feel, you're going to spend $5,000 to $10,000, maybe $15,000.
If you're lucky.
I said 1,000.
If you're lucky.
The 10-second videos, 15-second videos that Yvonne makes for us for free. I've had people reach out to me and offer to do it for me with AI. They don't say that they're doing it the old school way. They say they're doing it with AI. They've offered to do it for me just because I'm so special, at the reduced price of $1,500 per video. I have 26 books now. I can't afford that. Even if the books were flying off the shelf like John Grisham, whatever Patterson's name is, and Dean, whatever, Stephen King, you know, I got other things to do with my money than to have them take it like that. It's just ridiculous.
And you have to understand, ladies and gentlemen, in the indie world, the monetary resources that you have as indie authors is limited. And I would venture to say that most of us do not sell more than 10 books a year. And I have learned, I've been doing this for a long time, way longer than I should have. In the long haul, it is not the amount of money that we bring in, it is the joy of that book being in our hand. And it never gets old. I've had authors email me after they've gotten their first. Margot Milton, who will be here next week at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, because she's in England. She did a video of opening her box of books when she got them, and the joy on that girl's face. Mary, I can't explain it, can you?
It was ecstatic. And you know, that's the funny thing for me. Every single book that I write is like my first book all over again. I get as much pleasure from opening a package. And in fact, one day I had new books coming in, and I went out. It happened to be a Saturday, I think, when they came in. And Curtis was home, and he says, "What's in the mail?" I said, "I got books. I got books. I got books." And he says, "What do you mean you got books?" He said, "What kind of book?" I said, "I don't know. I don't remember which ones I ordered, but I got books."
Well, when Rose Padrick got her books,
The Can Do Kids.
Can Do Kids Build a Treehouse. Now, let me tell you what Rose did. Rose sent me a description of her 4 or 5 grandchildren.
There's 5
They're all
grandchildren.
boys. They're her 5 grandboys. They're all different. They all have different personalities. They all have different characteristics. And she asked me to create the graphics for this book. So she sent me the characteristics of the boys, and I started building on that, and then she sent me the book. So when she sent me the book, I added to it. And when she got the manuscript back for her to look at, make sure that's what she wanted, she was impacted, but not so much as she was when she held that book in her hand, because she said, "They look like my grandchildren."
Wow.
And the books that she has sold, that her family has seen, she said, "Yvonne, they're just over the moon because they look like the boys."
Well, that book, correct me if I'm mistaken, within a week or 2 of launching, it was in Amazon's top 100 in 2 different categories.
Yep. So we do here what nobody else does. We have set standards for children's books. We don't do the tired graphics of children's books, because children are a whole lot smarter than we give them credit for. We want a book.
Beyond See Dick Run.
Yes. We want the book to grow with the child, not the child to outgrow the book. We want it to become one of his favorite books, like the Dr. Seuss books. Those books had words in them that weren't even words.
They were nonsensical words.
Right. But even grown-ups love Dr. Seuss. So the standard that we have set here is for a reason. That's why we use the Chicago style of writing. That's why we do our own graphics. That's why we do our own book covers. Because we want you as the author to stand out as apart from the run-of-the-mill books that are out there. Mary, how many books are on Amazon?
Last count, it was 48 million and growing.
And we have almost 200 titles just from Midnight Publishing. So it's just a drop in the bucket of what's out there. But if your book stands out from the herd, then people will talk about your book. But you, the brand, have to help sell the product. Yeah. I can give you all the tools. Who else do you know gives you ad copy for nothing that you can take and create whatever you want to create?
Nobody.
Who else do you know does 10 or 15 second videos
for free?
At no cost?
Nobody.
So, and they're not run-of-the-mill videos either. Tell them what we did.
Videos, I think the videos are better than the book covers.
Tell them what I did with Andrea's 2 new books.
Ho, ho. She incorporated the author's image as one of the characters on the book cover. And it looks so good. I mean, if you know Andrea's got a very magnetic personality, She's very charismatic, and I know she probably doesn't believe it, but she is. And she's captivating. She's got a presence about her. And she's written Viking book. Both of them are Viking books, right?
No, the Viking book, and then there's the Gothic book.
Oh, Tea Party in the Grave.
Yeah, Midnight Tea in the Graveyard.
Midnight Tea in the Graveyard. So on that one, she's got Andrea sitting there on a bench in the grave having tea with a ghost. And Andrea's dressed up in a old-fashioned type dress. And Andrea's got she's just got what is the word I'm looking for?
She's photogenic.
Yeah, she's photogenic enough that she can be a model for any of our books, I think. But the one with the Viking was the first one. So she became the main character on the front cover. Astrid. Really, really well done.
So we make magic. We absolutely make magic here. We bring covers to life.
So, am I going to be a mermaid on the front cover of my new book?
It's a possibility. Be surprised what I can do.
Oh, I would not be surprised. You cease to surprise me. You continue to amaze me. But you cease to surprise me anymore.
So tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, is our regularly scheduled program at 10:30. Andrea was supposed to be our guest. However, Andrea has to deal with the medical field and getting her husband seen about. She will be with us on the 29th. So tomorrow, instead of having a guest, Mary and I will run our regular program. We will recap what we talked about today. And then we're going to talk about all the books that are coming out. Strength in Numbers, The Wilderness of Ren, Book 3 is now out in Audible. So we will talk about all the books that are coming out, all the books that are in the pike. And of course, the chat room is always open. But remember, if you don't know what the Chicago style of writing is, read our requirements. They're also on the Facebook page, on the Midnight Publishing Facebook page, as featured. Don't send me one paragraph at a time. Don't send me one chapter at a time. Don't send me one poem at a time. I want a completed manuscript. And when I send it back to you, and if you say, "Oh, Yvonne, I forgot. Can I add this chapter?" I will probably say yes, but understand it will create a new editing for me. So think about it.
And don't send an idea.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of writers who say, "I've got an idea for a book. What do you think? Should I do it?" And then Yvonne, because she is Yvonne, has taken that idea and run with it and started creating images for it. And then they come back, "Oh, you know what? I don't think I'm ready to publish this yet." Because, typically we say, "Well, this would be great if you put some dialogue to it. This would be a great idea if we could see the action." But Yvonne's already got everything spinning in her head. And that wastes time. And that's time she could be spending on me.
And don't come on board and say, "Yeah, we're all on board. Send me your work," and then after I get it done, send it back to you and say, "Oh, we're going in another direction." That dog don't hunt anymore.
Well, no, because now we have a sincerity fee. When you send in your manuscript, you better be sending in $25 too. We'll hold that $25 in your account, and if you continue with us, then we'll give you that back as when you're ready to buy your books for your first set of books. We will use that as book credit. If you decide you want to go in another direction, guess what?
You lose it. And the reason for that is because we are so busy now that I don't have time that I will never get back, wasting time on somebody that really has an ulterior motive. I have authors that are tried and true that have been with me for a long time who won't go anywhere else because they understand they're in the best possible place they can be. And I say that with a confidence because we've seen it happen. But if you're out there fishing, go fish somewhere else because these fish aren't biting.
And please, folks, just because the services are free does not mean they do not have a value. We know our worth. We know that what we do is, yeah, we could be making money. If we charged like other publishers charged, we'd be richer than any and all of our authors put together. Because that way you don't have to sell books, you just sell your services. But we don't do that because our services are for the glory of God.
Exactly. And to begin with, these authors that we have could not afford me.
No.
When you go and you look at what it costs to have a book edited, proofread, two different things. Two entirely different things that are done in the publishing world.
And they can be done by the same person, or they can be done by different people.
Cover design. The publishing of the book itself on 4 formats. The 10-second videos. The pre-promotion. The promotion when it's launched. The ad copy. What have I left out?
Well, number
Audible.
one, nobody gives away their ad copy.
No,
Nobody.
they don't. You have to buy it.
They would tell you, well, we can give you some more ads. We'll create more ads for you. But they're not going to give away the words for it. The fact that you're on, 14, 15 different channels? Between social media, the podcast, the website, got to be at least 15.
See, there's Substack, Mastodon, X, Deezer, Apple Music, Amazon Music, Spotify, Riverside, YouTube, the Riverside website, the author website, 4 pages on Facebook. Let's see what else. Instagram, TikTok,
LinkedIn.
Tumblr. We're on Tumblr, iHeartRadio. Podcast, I don't even know the names of them. We're at least on 25 to 30.
Those are the ones that are branded Midnight Publishing. That doesn't include all of these booksellers around the world. I think we came up with close to 40 that we found that one day just goofing off, looking around, see what was out there. So that's 40 to 50, no, that's 60 different places that our books are found.
And when you Google your name pops up.
And if I let's just say I decided to break away from Midnight Publishing and make the Magnificent Mary Publishing House, and I'm going to do it for money. I'm going to charge you to edit your book. And depending on the length of the book, I ain't cheap. I'm good. As they say, you can get it cheap, you can get it fast, or you can get it right. You can only get 2 of those. Well, I give you 2 of those. I don't do it fast, but I do it well, and I do it exactly right. And I do extensive developmental editing as well as proofreading. That can cost you anywhere from, I think, about $300 to $1,500 for one book.
Some people go.
I'm talking novel size.
Right. Some people go per word, some people go per book.
I go per hour because I know what my hours are worth. And I know how fast, and I keep a stringent log. So let's just round it up to $2,000. That's just for editing. Then you got to have cover design. We know for a fact that my son's friend paid somebody close to $500 to design a cover. And that was just the front. And that was just a cover. It was not a cover in 4 different formats. So now we're up to $2,500. I know that they charge anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 to do a 10-second video. Actually, I think she said it was a 7-second video using AI per book. So that's close to $4,000. If I was to get somebody to do social media ad or PR, maybe they send out a press release to newspapers. How good did that do, Sherry Ann?
Not well at all.
Yeah. She paid, I think she said $5,000 for her PR person.
Wound up in two printed materials, once in each printed material. That was it.
So now we're up to $10,000. And your book's not even out there yet. And me being Magnificent Mary's publishing house, I'm going to say don't use AI for your Audible. Let's get you a professional. That's going to cost you another $20,000. So now we're at what, $30,000, $40,000?
That you'll never recoup.
You will never, ever recoup it. And because I'm in it for the money, I'm not going to let you keep 70% of your royalties like Midnight Publishing does. Because Amazon keeps their 30% and we get the other 70%. I'll do like Penguin and I'll give you 3% of your royalties. I'll be generous. I'll give you 5%. And you're still not going to make your money back.
Nope.
Especially if I do like Penguin and say, you can only use the editor that I recommend, which I, of course, would recommend myself.
Or you can only go to this event.
Oh, that's right. We didn't even talk about events.
Or you can only order, you have to order this many books.
You have to order this many books, and you have to sell them by X date, and if you don't, you got to pay us back. And you can't order them from Amazon. You have to order them from us. No, thank you. If y'all think you only get what you pay for, bear in mind, Jesus paid the ultimate price. What Yvonne and I do is to honor God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, God whatever. God help me. But we don't charge anything, but we know a lot about the industry.
And someday we're both going to be gone.
Yeah.
And the knowledge only becomes wisdom when it is shared. And if we share the wisdom of our years of experience in this industry, before it was even an industry, when it was a despised word, and you as the listening audience and authors learn from that and carry the torch and keep it going, you will find that readers are reading more indie authors than ever before. They're even reading more indie authors than they are reading traditional authors, because indie authors have poetic license to write and be creative.
Yeah.
Without restriction. So we don't do erotica here. That is one thing we won't do. And I have to, bless her heart, I have to give Christina kudos. She has worked within those parameters. She has been a good egg and has understood and respected it.
Yeah,
and
she
I don't
said
know.
you had to tone it down a little bit.
Yeah, and I don't know anybody that publishes erotica. And if I did, I would research that publisher a lot before I even recommended them, because there are a lot of scammers out there. Nobody asks you. He never barks, but
No, I never hear him bark.
there's a lawnmower out there that's backfiring, and it's disturbed him. He didn't like it.
Woke him up.
I have a little Frenchie, ladies and gentlemen, and he is the king of this castle. But Frenchies don't bark, except he barks when his Aunt Louise comes. He knows he hears her golf cart, and he'll bark, come off the couch to greet her. He's a brat. So with that, we're going to end the day. If you have any questions, feel free to reach me at midnight_publishing@Yahoo, or reach Mary at Mary Brotherton
At Gmail.
@gmail. Or reach us on Facebook at the Midnight Publishing Facebook group page. Join that page. You'll learn something. Or send me a DM under Yvonne Mason. There's 101 different ways to reach us, because
If you found this show, you can find us.
Exactly. And this show will be going up everywhere after a while. So until tomorrow at 10:30, when we'll recap today's show, talk about books
Tomorrow
that
the gloves come off. We get to talk about anything.
Yeah, it all comes to the surface tomorrow. And if you want to join us in the chat room, join us in the chat room. If you decide you want to come on the show, let me know. We'll send you the link. You can come into the studio with us. So much fun.
That'll be a nice surprise.
It will. I love you, my darling. I'll talk to you
I
tomorrow.
love you, and this was fun talking about the Chicago Manual of Style.
So remember, Chicago style of writing. If you don't understand it, look it up. It's the only way we do things around here. It's very important.
Like we said earlier, the best bet is just to go to our website, midnight_publishing.org, download our requirements, and
That's simple.
follow suit.
And there, Bonnie Clark reacted to Off the Chains Reel. So she must have said a Brandy Hatfield. Huh.
There's nobody in the chat, but they're reacting to the Facebook page, I guess.
Probably. All right, until tomorrow. I love you.
Tomorrow morning at 10:30.
See you then.
Bye.
Bye everybody.